This is Jedi Master Josh. I hope everybody had a wonderful and very, very Merry Christmas. I know I did, and I know it might be upsetting to some people nowadays to hear, Merry Christmas. I don't know if that's a problem I've really encountered, but apparently it's a thing. There's like a war on Christmas or something like that. Merry Christmas. If it offends some liberals along the way, well, then that's just a nice little side effect. But everybody was enjoying the festivities, hanging out with their families, just basically doing the things that normal people do around the holidays. Spending time with, people that they care about and reflecting on the things that they are thankful for. The Democrats, as usual, were in full force, running around like total maniacs, basically acting like Scrooge-like, Grinch-like figures whose hearts need to grow a few sizes. Basically railing against tax cuts that are going to be giving money to, well, basically everybody, but especially the middle class. Now, the Democrats, as usual, they lie. I mean, that's something that they're very good at. It's something that they do quite frequently. Of course, the Republicans do as well. That's really just politics, right? Is just sort of the art of deception is sort of a key pillar, I would say. But they're basically saying that this tax bill, the GOP tax bill, the one that just passed, is going to be the worst thing ever. People like Chuck Schumer, people like Nancy Pelosi, people like Senator Warren, people like Senator Feinstein, basically the usual suspects are coming out and they're saying that this is going to be a tax cut for the rich, that this is going to hurt the middle class, that this is, of course, some of them even go so far as to say that this is downright blood money and people are gonna die. Bernie Sanders famously, people are gonna die. People will die.
Thousands of people will die.
There will be blood on the hands of every Republican and everybody who supports this evil, evil tax bill that is just helping nothing but old, rich, white men. I mean, that's it. That is it. No tax relief for anybody else. Nothing. Just the only person who, if you don't look like the Monopoly Man, you are not going to benefit from this tax plan. In other words. And as usual, it's all total BS. But they really, really went overboard to the degree that I think that they may have actually thought this tax bill was not going to pass. Now, if that's the case, they made one hell of a huge mistake. And that brings me to Politico. So, in part, because this has been labeled so successfully and class warfare is so integral in politics nowadays, labeling something as a tax cut for the rich is something that the public sees as, something that is unfavorable. Of course, so what happened is, at least to some degree, because of the incessant Democrats and the media, of course, coming out and saying that this tax bill is horrible, it's not going to help the middle class, it's all for the rich, blah, 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 blah.
Thousands of people will die.
Because they came out and said this, people believed it, basically. And that brings me to Politico. Poll. Voters split on GOP tax bill. Voters are divided on the GOP tax bill poised to clear both chambers of Congress this week, according to a new Politico/Morning Consult poll. The survey, conducted December 14th through 18th, shows a narrow 42% plurality of voters support legislation introduced by Republicans in Congress. That makes widespread changes to the U.S. tax system. Slightly less, 39%, oppose the legislation. The remaining 18% of voters are undecided. The intensity gap tilts against the bill. However, more voters strongly oppose the legislation, 26%, than strongly support it, 20%. Moreover, the Politico Morning Consult poll stands in contrast to other public surveys that show majorities in opposition to the bill. A CNN poll also released on Tuesday and conducted over virtually the same time period shows just a third of Americans favor the, quote, tax reform proposals made by the Republicans in Congress, while 55% majority oppose them. Internal Republican surveys also show greater opposition to the tax plan. A poll released Tuesday by 45 Committee, a conservative nonprofit group with close ties to President Donald Trump, to the dawn, if you will, shows 40% support, quote, the Republican plan to reform the federal tax code and cut personal and business taxes, less than 49% that oppose less than the 49% that oppose it, rather. So, certainly, at best, you've got a plurality of people who support it. At worst, you've got basically a majority of people who don't. Well, not quite. Well, yeah, and the CNN poll. Well, the CNN poll, I mean, goodness gracious. The most trusted name in news, right? But, so yeah, gotta take that maybe with just the slightest grain of salt. But for sure, it's unpopular. The bill is quite unpopular. It's, less than half the public thinks it's a good bill. So it's something that has been projected on to people, I think, in large part due to the media and due to the Democrats. And one thing that really highlights this is the simple fact that Donald Trump can do things that are actually pretty popular, but because it's got the Trump name on it, which is interesting because his whole thing is supposed to be he's really good at branding, which I think he is in many cases, but it's just interesting that his name has that effect. And of course it's because of the constant barrage by the media and people, the never Trumpers, the Democrats, all these people, at least in large part, also due to him, things that he does as well. But it's funny because he'll do things that are popular, but because it's got the Trump name, it's unpopular. And this, I think, sort of helped to exasperate the fact that people don't think this bill is good, is the fact that it's got the Trump name attached to it, and it was pushed as a tax cut for the rich. That was something that people really bought. And so you can see that it's quite unpopular. Now, what's funny is that people think that this bill is actually good if it has somebody else's name attached to it. Now, that person's name is everybody's favorite socialist, Bernie Sanders. And by everybody, I definitely don't include me in that. He's not my favorite socialist. I don't like socialism or socialists at all. So Bernie Sanders is definitely not my cup of tea. But a lot of people love the loony old man for some reason. And they basically think that anything he does is gold. Sort of in the same way that people thought anything Obama did was gold. And this is highlighted by a video from Ami Horowitz, who did A Man on the Street, and told people aspects of the Trump tax plan, but said that it was Bernie Sanders' tax plan. So let's roll that video.
I'm Ami Horowitz, and I'm back in the East Village, liberal Mecca. The Republicans recently voted on a new tax proposal, and predictably, Democrats didn't like it. But what if they thought that the Republican plan was actually a Bernie Sanders proposal? We presented them with the Republican tax plan and pretended that it was in fact Bernie's plan. What are your thoughts? Republican tax plan, good, bad?
I'm going to be honest with you, I feel like there's just another excuse for the rich people to get a break on having to pay taxes that the rest of us hardworking people have to pay.
They suck. They all suck.
I mean, there's a lot about the current proposed tax plan that's just ridiculous.
If you're making $50,000 or less, most family of four will not pay any taxes at all.
Okay. I think that's a good plan, yeah.
Sound good?
Yep.
If you take out a mortgage for more than $750,000, you're gonna end up paying more in taxes on that home.
I could definitely side with that.
The more money you make,
Yeah.
the more of a percentage of your income you have to pay to taxes.
Yeah, I know that people who make a lot of money aren't going to like that, but like That's just how it is. Yeah, exactly, right? 1%. Yeah.
What do you think of Bernie's tax plan?
It's fantastic.
Thousands of people will die.
So the bill is unpopular. The bill is unpopular for two reasons. Mainly because the media and the Democrats have lied about what is actually in the bill, and also because the bill has the sort of Trump's name attached to it. Basically, that's what it comes down to. And there are a lot of people out there who just sort of because Trump's name is associated with something, they think it's bad. So you're seeing this effect, and you see this with the people who think that the tax bill would be great if it was just old Bernie Sanders' tax plan. And the attack from the Democrats just continues and continues and continues, and it really sort of got to a crazy level and was really highlighted in one aspect by Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, who came out and attacked corporations directly, because one of the biggest aspects of this bill is that it is a giant corporate tax rate cut. It's a cut from 35%, which is one of the largest in the industrialized world, I think the largest actually, to 21%, which is putting us somewhere in the middle, really. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in general, the media, are coming out and saying that this is horrible because it's just going to be giving all this money to the corporations and they're not going to give it to the people at all. It's not going to, be invested into the employees whatsoever. They're just going to line their own pockets and help out their investors and do stock buybacks and increase dividends for their investors and all this nonsense. And ironically and hilariously, Chuck Schumer comes out and attacks AT&T by name. And right after that, AT&T comes out and says that they're going to give a $1,000 bonus to 200,000 of their employees and that they're going to invest $1 billion in the United States. So let's play old Chuck Schumer getting massive egg on his face.
Corporations are flush with cash right now. The stock market's booming. Job creation isn't. Look at all the companies that have already said they're going to use their tax break for stock buybacks, for dividends that don't affect average Americans. And I love the example of AT&T. Over the last 10 years, AT&T has paid an average tax rate of 8% a year. They have 80,000 fewer employees today than they had then. Tax breaks don't lead to job creation. They lead to big CEO salaries and money for the very, very wealthy.
I mean, we all knew Chuck Schumer was a clown, but my God, man, way to overact it, way to overplay it. Just terrible timing, if nothing else. Really, man. I mean, this happened. These two events happened basically simultaneously. Chuck Schumer came out and said that AT&T wouldn't invest back into their own business, and then, like as he's saying that, AT&T basically does exactly what he says they wouldn't do. So that is just pretty hilarious. It's always good to see Democrats exposed for the two-faced hypocrites that they are, and just outright liars. And AT&T is not the only business. AT&T is not the only business whatsoever to do this, because it turns out when you cut the corporate tax rate, there's going to be more investment in this country. If you are going to have a lower rate, if you're going to pay lower taxes than you are in other countries, or it's going to be more competitive at least to invest in a business here, then of course you're going to invest more money in this country if the tax is lower. I mean, it's really just common sense. And you're going to see this effect more and more as time goes on. But there has been a number of companies that have come out and said that they're going to invest to give bonuses to their employees, to increase the minimum wage in some cases, and to invest millions or billions of dollars into the United States. And it's obviously because we are becoming a more competitive, landscape for businesses and corporations. So this brings me to CNN Money. and it's from CNN, so that's how you know that it's not some kind of pro-Trump website or something. It's not like this is Breitbart News or anything. And plus, these are just facts, so it is what it is. It wouldn't matter who reported them. But anyways, CNN money. Companies wasted no time announcing plans to use some of their steep tax savings to boost their workers. Wells Fargo and Fifth Bank Corp. said they plan to hike their company-wide minimum wages to $15 an hour. Well, would you look at that? We are winning the fight for 15 that the Democrats always want, just using good old-fashioned capitalism, not socialism. Would you look at that? How magical. Other firms, including Comcast and AT&T, promised $1,000 bonuses. And now we're going to go through a little list here. AT&T, telecom firm, said it would give 2,000 employees a $1,000 bonus, and also said that it would invest $1 billion in the United States. Boeing, the aerospace giant, said it would spend $300 million on workers. The funds will be split evenly among worker training, upgrading facilities, and a program that matches employees' charitable contributions. Boeing CEO Dennis Muhlenberg praised the tax bill as, quote, a critical driver of business, economic growth, and innovation for the United States and for Boeing, according to a press release. Comcast, the telecom firm which owns NBC Universal, said it will give out, quote, special $1,000 holiday bonuses to more than 100,000, quote, frontline and non-executive employees. Comcast also expects to spend, quote, well in excess of $50 billion over the next 5 years, investing in infrastructure to radically improve and extend our broadband plant and capacity, and our television, film, and theme park offerings, according to a press release issued Wednesday night. With these investments, we expect to add thousands of new direct and indirect jobs. Well, would you look at that, Chuck Schumer? Investment in companies, investment in employees, expanding the business, creating more jobs. I thought that just didn't happen, Chuck Schumer. I mean, what's going on, man? 2 company spokesmen confirmed the announcement was tied to tax reform. Well, would you look at that? That's a shocker. Fifth Third Bancorp, the financial company, services company, says it will raise its company-wide hourly minimum wage to $15 an hour. Again, winning that fight for 15. Signaling a pay raise for about 75% of its employees. The bank also pledged to give out $1,000 bonuses to about 13,500 of its workers. CEO Greg Carmichael attributed the move to the tax legislation. Quote, the tax cut allowed the bank to the opportunity to reevaluate its compensation structure and share some of those benefits with its talented and dedicated workforce, the company said in a statement. Wells Fargo. The megabank said it will hike its minimum hourly pay rate to $15. That will mark a $1.50 increase over the company's current minimum of $13.50 per hour. Wells Fargo said the new minimum will become effective in March 2018. So you're seeing wages increase for employees, you're seeing bonuses for employees, you're seeing investment in the United States, you're seeing new jobs created. This is all happening because businesses have more of their own money to spend. It's pretty simple. I mean, government is basically a black hole in the universe, in the governmental universe, just sucking out all our money into the abyss of nowhere. Businesses, hate them or love them, and they're not doing this out of the kindness of their own heart. They're doing this to have a good perception in the public. They're doing this to basically become more competitive. They're doing this, in short, because they're businesses, and it's a good business decision to do so. And obviously now with the corporate rate cut, it's more profitable to invest in the United States, so it's going to happen. And the Democrats are just having a really, really hard time with this, and they are definitely, they have to be going crazy right now at all these companies that are making these moves, and you're going to see more and more of this in the future. Again, not because these companies are, benevolent and just altruistic and love all their employees. I mean, I'm sure some of these companies are doing this out of goodwill, at least to some degree, but they're doing it, again, because it's a smart thing to do for their business, and it's something in some cases that they're going to need to do to be able to stay competitive, especially moving forward into the future as these tax cuts, allow people to be more competitive across the board. And the bank also said it will increase its charitable giving by about 40% to $400 million. So that is nice. Now, here is a direct example of why. I mean, other than just common sense, 2 + 2 = 4. Who would have thought? Here's a perfect example of why a low corporate tax rate means that you're going to get more investment in your country. And the example is Ireland. So that brings me to The Guardian. 700 U.S. companies now located in Ireland as direct investment soars. Ireland has benefited from 277 billion of U.S. direct foreign investment in the past 2 decades. Gaining more from American firms than Brazil, Russia, India, and China combined. The ACCI's latest report into foreign direct investments shows that 700 U.S. companies based in Ireland now employ 130,000 people. The list of major firms operating in the Republic includes Intel, Boston Scientific, Dell, Pfizer, I believe, Google, Hewlett-Packard, Facebook, and Johnson & Johnson. A major draw for U.S. firms is Ireland's low 12.5 corporate tax rate. Yes, 12.5, much lower than ours is even now after this tax cut. And numerous controversial tax breaks. The government has promised to phase out the latter. So what you see here, and it's quite obvious, Ireland now had a tax rate, a corporate tax rate of like 50%. It was like 40 or 50% in like the late 80s or the 90s. And then they slowly dropped it down to what it is now, 12%. And they've just seen record investment in their country, especially now that it's 12%. But as they were lowering it as well, and it's just obvious. If you lower your corporate tax rate, you're going to get more more investment, more capital invested in your country. It's really simple, but the Democrats seem to have a hard time with it. No, they really don't. They just like lying to people. Now, one reason. So you always know, if you're making your enemy, or maybe not your enemies, but your competitors upset and squirming. If they're squirming around and they're pulling their hair out, you're probably doing the right thing. Well, that's basically what this next article outlines in my head. So this is from the New York Times. U.S. tax bill may inspire cuts globally while fueling trade tensions. Now, I want to read this first sentence in a really dramatic voice because it just sounded really dramatic to me when I read it. European leaders this week raised the prospect of a trade battle, implying that they may fight the new tax rules before the World Trade Organization. Chinese officials are readying defensive measures to protect the country's economy and its competitiveness. I'm not kidding, that was actually in the article. I thought that was like a pretty intense couple of sentences there, so I couldn't read that in like a normal voice. It just felt wrong. So basically you've got the Europeans trying to bring the tax rules before the World Trade Organization, and you've got the Chinese flipping out. So basically what that tells me is we're doing something right. Keep on going. On Friday, Mr. Trump emphasized his America First, America First mantra, saying at a singing ceremony that the tax bill would mean more jobs and investment in the United States, saying, quote, "A lot of things are going to be happening in the USA," the president said. "We're going to bring back our companies. They're already coming back. It'll be beautiful. It'll be spectacular. It'll be huge." No, that last part was in there. That was all me. And it all starts with the corporate tax rate. The new rate, down to 21% from 35%, takes the United States from the top to the lower end. Countries like Australia, France, Germany, and Japan, all of which have effective corporate rates of at least 30%, will be under pressure to follow. That's right, you will follow because we will lead America first. America first! Sorry, I was getting a little bit of a MAGA overload there. But really, I mean, it's just pretty silly that we're supposed to care about what the heck these countries are going through in terms of having to deal with us lowering our taxes. Yeah, I guess you guys can just deal with it. Sorry. Now, one common myth, one big gigantic myth of many in the Democratic arsenal is that when you cut spending, when you cut taxes, that it somehow costs the government money. That when you allow you to have more of your own money, it somehow costs the government money. Well, this is total BS, as per usual with the old Democrats. And I'm going to prove it to you real quick and real simple. So this is the Federal Receipt and Outlay Summary that you can go to yourself and see. This is a official government information, and what you will see is I just want to go to so what the Democrats say is when you cut taxes that it means that there's going to be less money for the government. Okay, it's not true, and I'm going to show that to you real quick here. So Reagan implemented some of the biggest, probably the biggest tax cuts in history in 1981 first, and then in 1986. It was a two-part tax program, basically. And what he did is he lowered the top rate, among other things, but he lowered the top rate from 70%, it was 70% to 50%. Then he lowered it from 50% to 28%, or 27%, 20 or 27, one of the two. And by doing that, it obviously became basically the biggest tax cuts ever, at least on the individual side. Now, you would think if cutting taxes meant less money for the government, then that would certainly be a perfect case point. But it's not. It's not at all. So let's go to the Federal Receipt and Outlay Summary, and what you'll see here is 3 columns. On the left column, you see what the government revenue was, how much the government made. In the second column, you see how much the government spent. In the third column, you see whether there was a surplus or a deficit. So, if you go to 1981, when the tax cuts were first enabled, and then you go all the way through Ronald Reagan's presidency, and you look at the tax receipts, the column on the far left, how much money the government, federal income, the government got from taxpayers, you will see that that number continues to go up. It dropped once from 1982 to 1983 because that was still, the tax cuts were taking effect. But that is a minimal thing, and you've seen, basically you don't see ever an upward trend of actual decrease in federal revenue. You saw that 1 year, and that was again because the tax cuts were still taking effect. But what you see is the federal revenue increase year after year after year, other than that 1 year again. So that completely debunks the entire myth that the government makes less money when you cut taxes. That's not true. It's never been true with the Kennedy tax cuts. It's not been true with the Bill Clinton tax cuts, with the George Bush tax cuts, with the Calvin Coolidge tax cuts, with any of the tax cuts, Democrat or Republican. Federal revenue does not go down. So there goes that little myth. Now I want to go to the Cato Institute, and I want to prove to you real quick that this is going to be a massive tax cut for the middle class, regardless of what Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats say. So what you'll see here is a handy-dandy little chart that shows the GOP tax plan effects for 2018. Now, on the very far right column number 5, you will see that there is a negative 28% number, and that is for the middle income quintile, which means that there is going to basically be, when you get rid of payroll taxes, because those don't get changed from this tax bill, when you take those out of the equation, everything all factored in, there's basically going to be a 28% tax cut for people that are in the middle quintile. So precisely a massive tax cut for people in the middle class. Now, this data comes from the TPC, the Tax Policy Center, not by any stretch of the imagination a conservative, right-wing, bastion of evil white people or whatever. It's just not true. So, there's that chart, and then I want to bring you to another chart also from the TCP. Individual and corporate income taxes for 2019 under the new tax bill. And what we will go down to here is people in the 40,000 to 50,000 are going to be saving, this estimate is in billions of dollars. Basically, there's going to be 6.7 billion less for people in the 40 to 50 $1,000 range. People in the $50 to $75,000 range, there's going to be $23 billion less. So these are massive cuts for people that are going to be in the middle class. It's going to be cuts for people across the board, but the largest cuts are indeed for the people in the middle class when you take everything into account. When you look at the individual side, at least, obviously, the corporate tax cuts are the biggest overall tax cut. Now, I want to go to the Tax Policy Center itself, which has this wonderful little gem popped in there and is another myth that I want to debunk real quick about this tax bill. From the Tax Policy Center. On average, in 2017, taxes would change little for lower and middle income groups and decrease for higher income groups. Compared to current law, 5% of taxpayers would pay more tax in 2018, 9% in 2025, and 53% in 2027. Now that is key, that last little part there, 53% in 2027. Now remember, this is a left-leaning organization that is crunching these numbers, and they are almost certainly coming up with estimates that are nowhere near what's actually going to happen. It happens time and time again, especially with, even like the CBO, for example, the nonpartisan CBO. They screw up their estimates just famously, especially with things like Obamacare. So these estimates aren't even necessarily, they're certainly not right-leaning. They're certainly not the most favorable or generous estimates. You could definitely say that. But even these admit that only 5% of people are going to pay more taxes. Those people are people that are in blue states who are not going to be able to deduct their state and local taxes now, which is hilarious for the reason that that's because Democrats in blue states hike taxes on people, and they're now not going to be able to deduct those, which was basically people in other states subsidizing people in blue states, which is something that shouldn't happen, so it's good that that's not in there. But these people that are going to pay more taxes are the 5% that they're talking about here. So because of Democrats, basically. And then 9% in 2025, according to their estimates, and 53% in 2027. Well, the problem with the 2027 is that because of budget reconciliation, because of the Democrats not being willing to vote even one single vote to lower your taxes, we had, the Republicans had to, I'm a conservative, not a libertarian, not a Republican, that's why I say that. The Republicans had to basically use what's called reconciliation, which means they were able to pass the tax bill with only 51 votes, but it had to be revenue neutral, first of all, and it had to basically have provision in there where it sunsets after 10 years, meaning it would basically phase out after 10 years, or just be completely removed, rather, after 10 years. Well, 2027 would be after the taxes would go away because the Democrats weren't willing to vote for it. And that's why there would be 53% people who would be paying more taxes, because it would be going back to the previous tax system. And they're trying to blame that on Trump and the Republicans. I mean, it's just bizarre. Only in weirdo Washington land, only in Tax Policy Center liberal land can you say that a tax bill that's going to end because the Democrats wouldn't vote for it, is going to make taxes go up after it ends. And that's somehow the fault of the Republicans or something, I guess. I don't even know. It's just completely bizarre, completely absurd, and just devoid of any meaning whatsoever. The fact of the matter is, on this tax bill, is that for 95% of Americans, it is going to be a tax cut. It is going to be a massive tax cut for the middle class. They are going to double the child tax credit. They are going to double the standard deduction. They are repealing the individual the Obamacare mandate that mandates that you have insurance, which is another thing that the Democrats lie about. They say that millions of people are going to, 18 million people or whatever, are going to lose their health insurance because of the repeal of the mandate. But the reason that they're not going to have insurance after the mandate's repealed is because they no longer have to have insurance. And even the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, admits this. So it's just absurd that they're saying people are going to lose their insurance. No, they're going to choose to not have their insurance that you forced them to have in the first place.
Thousands of people will die.
So it's just insane, the type of logic that is, the ill logic that is put forward by the Democrats. And, again, this is a massive tax cut across the board. This is going to cause, companies to come into this country, more investment into this country, and not a single Democrat voted to lower your taxes. And this is going to be a big problem for them moving into the future, into 2018 and beyond, especially when you look at the fact that Black and Hispanic unemployment is the lowest that it has been in years. And of course, there are going to be more businesses now investing in the United States. There are going to be more businesses sprouting up within the United States itself. Multinationals investing in the United States, and people would just within the United States itself, becoming business owners and starting corporations with this lowered corporate tax rate. It's just something that's obviously going to happen. Wages are going to increase, as you see. And there's just going to be better job opportunities and more job opportunities for everybody, including the Black and Hispanic, communities, which, are famously vote for Democrat, in the majority. So it's something that is going to be a big problem for them if jobs are coming into, Black and Latino areas, and it's because of Trump. And when people are looking at their checks and they're seeing that they are getting more money than they were in the previous year, and that their taxes didn't in fact go up like the Democrats were saying, and that it's because of Trump. The Democrats are going to have a real tough time explaining that one to their constituents. And I don't think, I think that they thought that this bill wasn't going to pass. Because obviously they usually lie about this kind of stuff, but there was real solid tax cuts for the middle class in this bill. Something they should have, bare minimum, supported. And they didn't. They didn't at all. And this is going to really come to bite them in the ass in the future. So just overall, what we're getting here is we're getting a wonderful tax cut, a wonderful Christmas present from President Trump, if you will, in the form of tax relief and also in the form of basically outing the Democrats as the pure, unequivocal, hypocritical liars that they are time and time again. But with this, again, they just went too far, and they told people something that is patently not true, something that is not only false, but that every single person who gets more money now because of this is going to know 100% is false. It's going to be something that the Republicans, that Trump, moving into 2018 and beyond, is going to be, that they're going to be able to, use as a tool to absolutely demolish the Democrats. I mean, this was a huge mistake for them to not at least support the middle class tax cuts and to, quite frankly, not support the tax cuts in general. Because now, moving on, again, they're going to have to basically have a platform of wanting to raise taxes in the future. Something that is never popular. So, good luck, Democrats. Moving on into the future, you really screwed this one up, and this is a massive, massive victory for President Trump. And I gotta say, I am enjoying the liberal meltdown, maybe just a little bit more than I should. But it was just like it's the Christmas gift that keeps on giving, I guess, if you will. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe. Please leave me a like. Maybe share the video, whatever you're inclined to do. And I hope you will join me in the future for more videos. With that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and may the force be with you.
Thousands of people will die.